Purim, all things Purim. It's going to be a lot of fun. That being said, the Megillah is actually quite serious. There's actually a lot to talk about. Next week, we're going to do a really special class. It's going to be, I'm actually going to even try to bring some food in. So, I don't know, Purim food, whatever. We'll see. I don't know what Purim food is besides like Kametashin.
Yeah.
What else is there? I don't know. What was that? Junk food, yeah. Okay. So, by the way, just to remind everybody, this Motzei Shabbos, come by the second cup. It's going to be a lot of fun prizes, raffles, giveaways. We have some great stuff. I just ordered it. Hopefully it'll be arriving soon. Okay, here we go. What I want to do today is I want to analyze. I sent out a text to everyone, and it's very problematic. Because Mordechai not bowing seems to lead Haman to get so angry that he wants to destroy the Jewish people. Why does Mordechai so stubbornly refuse to bow to Haman? What's the big deal? Just bow. You're playing with an egomaniac. Just bow, nod your head, and that's it. Get on with it. Why and how could you endanger the entire Jewish people? It's almost as if you are being very, what's the word? Selfish. I wanted to show that I'm not going to bow to him. What's wrong with you, Mordechai? Okay, that's our question. This is a very complicated question. This is not simple at all. So let's take a look at some of the sources that we have in front of us to help us perhaps analyze this. Take a look, please, ladies, in front of you. Source number 1. Here we go. So what happens? Haman becomes viceroy. He becomes the second in command. He becomes the second chief, right? Now, look what happens. Pasuk Beis. V'chol of Melech Asher V'Shamelech Korim Umishal Lavam. Everybody who's sitting in Shar HaMelech. Now, by the way, it is not clear if there was an obligation for every local Persian to bow to Haman. Because look at the verse. What does the pasuk say? It could be the only people that have to bow to Haman are people who are located in the Shar HaMelech. Shar HaMelech is clearly like saying parliament, nobility, inner circle, Senate, one of those types of words. Right? Okay. Now, why are they doing it? Kichein Tziva Lo HaMelech. So, this pasuk tells us that there's an obligation on every local senator, to bow to Haman. That has been decided by the king. Mordechai refuses to bow. Does it tell us why? Nothing. Does it give us a suggestion? Nothing. What's going on here? Next pasuk. Are you crazy, Mordechai? How can you not listen to the command of the king? You're playing with fire. Every single day. Mordechai, why don't you bang? Finally, by the way, just as an aside, the fact that Mordechai wasn't bowing, did Haman know that Mordechai was a Jew? No. Because look at the end. When Haman only afterwards is told, oh, by the way, Mordechai is a Jew, he gid lehem asher Yehudi. If not for Haman being told that, would Haman would have known? It appears not. It's clear, by the way, Mordechai was not outwardly Jewish. Right? That's what it says in Megillah. Let's go on. Vayar Haman ki ein Mordechai kor mishtachav elo. After day 4, after day 5, after day 7, after day 10, Mordechai still refuses to bow. Now Haman gets irate, and he's furious, and he's angry. He doesn't just want to get back at Mordechai. He wants to get back at the entire Jewish people. Because after all, he Mordechai. He found, Mordechai is part of the Jews. Well, isn't that convenient, right? Mordechai. Not just this Zionist nation, Not just this. He wants to destroy Mordechai. Why does he want to destroy Mordechai? Because it's Mordechai who's not bowing to him. I have a very simple question. Mordechai, you've just endangered the entire Jewish people because of your stubbornness. You should be maybe chayav mita. You're like a rodef. You're causing other people to die. That's, on that, right? It's as if Mordechai is running around almost killing the Jewish people. One could even argue it's Mordechai's fault for endangering the entire Jewish people. Not Haman. Okay, fine, that's a bit of an exaggeration. Where do you see the Avodah Zarah?
Like bowing down.
No, where do you see the Avodah Zarah? Is that true? Really? Okay. Now, I will prove to you it can't be Avodah Zarah because this is verse number 2. V'Yosef hu shlit al aretz hu mashbir l'chol aretz v'yavo achei Yosef v'yishtachavu lo aparim arza. We see throughout Chumash very upstanding citizens having no problem bowing. We see it by Esav. We see it by Yaakov to Esav. We see the brothers. By the way, they bowed to Yosef. They didn't think he was Yosef. They thought he was Viceroy, right? They didn't think it was right. So son of Paneach, right? So bowing we see is not a problem. I will show you source number 3. People bow all the time in Tanakh. Abraham bows. No, it is not a problem to bow. So what's the problem? Why does Mordechai refuse to bow? If there's not a problem bowing, why does Mordechai refuse to bow?
Isn't there a mention that he had like an idol?
So now you appreciate what you were taught in grade 2. So because of this, Chazal looked at the Megillah and said, this can't be. There had to be a very good reason why Mordechai wasn't bowing. So they said, turn the page.
Well, why does a Chachamim need to think that there was a big reason? What if he just didn't do it? Like, just because he thought, no, I don't think this is right today. I woke up this morning.
So you asked an excellent question. Hold on to your thought. We're going to come back to that in a minute. Very, very, very good question. Where's the Gemara that I wanted to show you? Oh, here we go. Turn to... I thought it was there. Oh. 15. Source 15. And 16. Actually, let's turn to 15 for now. You'll see why. It says Esther Rabbah. I thought I brought something else. Okay, I thought I had something else. Anyways. Says the Medrash in Esther Rabbah. Oh. Take a look at the second line there at the end. Or just let's read the second line together. Hu harehu dichtiv lo yichav lo yishachaveh ki kantoran haya v'over al gzeros hamelech ela kishetziva Hakadosh Baruch Hu lishavos laHaman chakak ovodas kochavim al libo v'niskavein k'dei sheyishtachavu la'avodas kochavim. Says the Midrash, what did he do? He placed a little gachka. He placed an idol over. He wore it like a necklace. And therefore, when people would bow down, as if they were bowing down to an idol. Now, here's my question. And I thought about the Gemara Megillah, which says it too, but I don't see it on the sheets. But I'm pretty sure it's there. Why did Chazal feel that they had to say that Haman wore an idol around his neck? Why? Yes?
Because if there wasn't a problem in the first place, then Mordechai probably would have done it.
Right, so the assumption is, which is I think a fair assumption, Mordechai needs a really good reason not to bow. Because you, in the olden days, especially not just today, you don't go against the strict instructions of a king. Because they can behead you. So the fact that Mordechai refuses, and he's insistent, he's stubborn, he's tenacious, he refuses to bow. So they said, "Oh, you want a good reason? Oh, I'll give you." You know what the reason is? Because Haman must have had an idol around his neck, and bowing to. Because by the way, bowing to a regular person, is that a problem? It appears not.
Conceptually, it's probably
Explain. What do you mean?
like saying that this person has power. Like Hashem has all the power in the world.
Okay.
Especially since they were on like a low level in that time period, and like.
But he wouldn't bow to a rabbi either.
So how come Avraham bows to?
It's a sign of respect.
Avraham bows. The brothers bow. How come they're allowed to bow?
Maybe like it became less like strong, like pinhug, so to speak, like not now like Mordechai's time. Because now, like, I would never just bow to someone. Like
It's not part of your culture.
Right.
If you were Japanese, you'd bow.
Probably depends what the connotation is. Like what the
Okay, explain.
like we don't know what the underlying meaning was then or before then, or like maybe it's a sign of respect, maybe it's a sign of you're the boss of me, there's no one else, you are the like idol kind of, you're the person who controls. Like we don't know what it meant.
Okay, very good.
Yaakov was punished, like the way that he treated Esau, that he said like, I don't know exactly the words.
Yes, so the Gemara just mentioned that sometimes that he bowed, some things were destroyed. Yes, for sure. Right? Good.
It's like, I'll give you anything, like.
So I think one thing we have to understand is if you want to tell me that there was an idol around his neck, and therefore bowing to the idol is problematic because it's like avodah zarah, maybe that's why he didn't bow. But I think Chazal is saying something much, much deeper. Much deeper. Because we see that bowing really isn't such a problem. And I would like even to argue that there's a much more powerful message to say. When Chazal said there was an idol, do they really mean there was an idol? Maybe not even necessarily. But there was a metaphoric idol. Because I could show you a number of sources, which we're actually going to see in a minute, that how did Haman perceive himself? How did Haman perceive himself? When Avraham bows to Bnei Ches, is he saying they're like idols? Why is Avraham bowing? Why are the brothers bowing down to Yosef? Respect, you're a king.
Gratitude.
What? Gratitude? Okay, well, at that point that might have been gratitude, but it's a sign of respect. Was there some type of insistence that the Bnei Chet said, everyone must bow down to me, Avraham bow down to me? Hear the difference? Haman makes a command to everyone, or I shouldn't say everyone, let's say for now, everyone in Shar HaMelech has to bow down to me. We see something very sinister, very, more than just an egomaniac. Look at the way Haman perceives himself. And by the way, I think the number 2 minister in government always had this rule that you bow down to them. Doesn't appear that way, right? Is this like in the Persian books? Like, the number 2 guy. By the way, do we even see there's a command to bow down to the king? Okay, so we see that Esther bows, but that's the king. That's normal social etiquette. But to bow down to the number 2 person, that's very odd. We don't see that so often in various, cultures and stuff. Especially, even if we do bow down, it's a much more matter of respect. It's not demanded in that same way, right? Right? Like, when the brothers bow down to Yosef, who's the number 2 guy, this is what we do. It's not because there was a demand, there was a tzivur, but it was the cultural expectation. That's what you do. Not demanded and imposed in this malicious, evil, conniving way that clearly, egotistical, that Haman wanted to do it. Yeah, but the question is, whose idea was it? Like, did Haman say it that he needed Achashverosh's proof? Okay. It could be, it's a good point, but it could be Achashverosh saying it. So again, or it's Achashverosh demands his people perceive Haman differently.
Why would he?
But it appears that it's Haman, because Haman is when it gets really, like, Achashverosh, it's interesting. We don't see Achashverosh care. We see Haman cares. Right? Like, meaning, if it really came from Achashverosh himself, so Achashverosh would say, like, Mordechai, I have 5 laws, you don't follow them, I want to kill you. Like, but yet, it appears that Haman gets angry, and Haman wants to go Mordechai. If it was such a real king demand, so why isn't the king himself dealing with it? You understand what I'm saying? Like, that's why it appears that, yes, it has the approval of the king, but it appears that it's really, really Haman's law, Haman's rule. Because Haman deals with it. As opposed to, hey, there's this guy, you had a law and you're not, this guy's not listening to it, you gotta kill him. It appears the king didn't really care so much about this rule. Or else he would have taken the law into his own hands. Haman needed, it's like if I was Haman, go to Achashverosh, say Achashverosh, Mordechai's not bowing, he's going against your rules, kill him. That would have worked, no? But it appears that wouldn't have worked because Haman would have done it. Instead, Haman had to say, okay, I want to get rid of Mordechai because you're not bowing down to me. I gotta arrange everything myself. Achashverosh doesn't really care about anything. We see that, right? Achashverosh is not like calling the shots. Everyone is playing Achashverosh in Megillah, right? It appears that way. Everyone's like using them. By the end, Mordechai uses them too, right? To get him to do what he wants. So, anyways, yeah. So, question? What a question?
Yeah.
No, don't you think that sounds to me more like Haman's kind of insecure? That he's asking people to bow down to him, and it sounds like he wants. I'm not a major, but it sounds like he's just insecure that he wants honor, because first he asks people to bow down to him, and then he just decides to kill people, and I feel like it's because he wants honor.
So you're right. I agree. So here's what's interesting. I agree that it's about honor, but then, let's go back for a second. When Mordechai doesn't bow, does he think he's endangering the Jewish people? No. Prove it. Prove it. You said no. I saw your head move. Prove it. Because you're right. Prove it.
Because he
Probably
doesn't
otherwise he
bow
wouldn't have
multiple
done
times.
If he thought he was endangering the Jewish people, would he still have not done it?
How do we know for a fact? It's a good question. I'm not 100% sure of that.
Yeah, then he told the Jews. It's not.
But how do we know for a fact that when Mordechai Mordechai doesn't bow, it's clear he doesn't think he's endangering the Jewish people?
Because afterwards he says, it's because of you that this decree came on. Everyone has to fast. He doesn't say, oh, it's my fault.
Say it better than that. Much clearer than that. Haman doesn't even know he's Jewish. He has to be told he's Jewish. Right? So it's clear that Mordechai doesn't think he's endangering the Jewish people. I tricked you all. Right? Mordechai not bowing in the beginning he doesn't think he's endangering the Jewish people. He has no idea. They don't even know he's Jewish in the beginning. And then, only later on, Ki Gilem Asher Yehudi, does Haman say, oh, let's take down the Jewish also. And I'll pin it on the fact that Mordechai's not bowing. After all, because he's not bowing to me, and I hear he's Jewish, I can get the Jews. Now, it's clearly he didn't like the Jews ahead of time. It's kind of like, they need an excuse for anti-Semitism. So you got to find the excuse. It's just human behavior. You got to find the reason for it. They're too rich or too poor, too this, too that. Okay, we found the reason, now we can do it. Right? That's kind of the way, almost what it looks like here. Now, take a look at, I have different numbers in here. Take a look for a minute at, where's Shmuel Rabbi?
Wait, so then it could have been technically like a personal chomer that he took upon himself type of thing.
Oh. It could be that he was being very strict. Okay, good. That he decided that for whatever reason, this would be,
more strict than Avram and the Avram.
He felt that there's something going on here that he couldn't bow. The question is, what exactly is it that Mordechai felt they couldn't bow? So, we'll get there, hopefully. Okay, take a look at source number, where's my Shmos Rabbah source? Shmos Rabbah, 11. No. Yeah, 11. Amar Baruch Hu. Kol kach lema amar lahem kol mishanim ahem einat lim shemra. B'mitzrayim hayisim ahem v'nimset. B'vel yisi. B'madai yisim ahem v'nimset. Shalom Hashem. Or Mordechai lo yishra v'lo yishtachafeh. Meaning, the Gemara, the Midrash in source 11 is saying, I'm always with the people during difficult times. How do I know this? I was with them in Egypt. I was with them in Bavel. I was with them in Madai. I was with them in, and I was v'nimtzet shalema. I was there. I was in complete, almost agreement. Meaning, what the Midrash is trying to say that what Mordechai did was right. The fact that he didn't bow was the right thing to do. Which is why. Why is it such a big deal? Why is it such a big deal? So I want to show you To show you, by the way, how positive Chazal see Mordechai not bowing. Right? And again, take a look at source 8. Hinach Yafaya Rayasi Elu Chanamu Shavazarya, which is a case where they were in the pit, right? So 8 and 11 are very similar, both of them saying Mordechai did the right thing. I'll show you another example. Number 9. Shalu Talmidav Shel Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Bnei man yischayevu son'ehem shel Yisrael shebe'oso hador klaya. So you have to understand the language of the Gemara. The Gemara here is speaking in a clean language, lashon nekiah, lashon sonegar. But really, what are they actually saying? Why were not the enemies of the Jewish people deserving of destruction? What were the Gemara really saying? Why were the Jews themselves, shall we say, why did they deserve destruction? Right? Why? Amar lahem. You tell me. Like a good Jew, you answer a question with a question. Amar lahem, I'll tell you why. Because they partook in the evil feast of the man. The feast of the evil man. Right? What was that? Earlier in the Megillah, what did they do? They partook in the Seudah of Hashverosh and the entire kingdom. Im ken b'Shushan yahargu. Fine. So I understand why in Shushan they should be killed. Why all the Jews in the world, in the 127 provinces? Armulo, you tell me. I will tell you. Oh, here's the source I was looking for. Shishtachavu latzelem. They bowed down to the idol. What's the idol they're referring to? Haman's idol. Amrulo v'chim asui parin yesh b'davar. But they didn't mean to. Meaning, if you bow down to Vazara, but you don't mean to. They didn't mean to. They're bowing down, not to Vazara. They're just bowing to show respect. They weren't doing it for idolatry purposes. Answer: Amar lahem. Just like they didn't really mean on bowing down, so too God didn't really mean to wipe out the Jewish people. Fooled you.
So you're saying that they really internally didn't mean to, but...
So they didn't really... First of all, let's make a lot of assumptions. This Gemara is now assuming that all the Jewish people were bowed down to Haman. We don't see that anyway. We just see it's only the people in Shar HaMelech. Assumption number 2 is that people didn't mean it. How many people didn't mean it? Well, that makes sense to me. They didn't mean it. Meaning, even if you want to argue that he had an idol around his neck, they didn't mean to bow down to serve Zara. They just meant to show respect. They won't get killed. It's not for... You're not worshipping an idol when you do that.
Well, what made you so sure they were going to be killed?
So that, we saw they were going to be killed, and they were saved.
Yeah.
So, just like they didn't mean to. So, this doesn't really help our situation at all. Because it still doesn't answer fundamentally, why did Mordechai decide not to bow down? Because I'll tell you why. If it's just a matter of, if it's not really avodah zarah, because if all you have to do is mean it to be avodah zarah, then why are you taking such a stand for? Who cares? Only thing you want to tell me, bowing down to an idol is a terrible thing to do, don't do it. In which case, don't do it. But the Gemara here seems to suggest that if you don't intend on doing it, that maybe be okay. Or at least, not avodah zarah. Just like a fake out. But if that's the case, you're going to endanger yourself. So it comes on Tosfot in source number 10.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, I could be totally wrong in connecting like two different things in my head. I feel like I learned that in the context of like an idol of like Nebuchadnezzar or something, like a copper.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah, Nebuchadnezzar had an idol.
Something like how they all bowed to that, and that came back in like that. The Tehillim would be referring to that, but I don't know if I'm just connecting two different things or if it's actually
You are. Yes, very much
two
so.
different things.
No, there's a lot of connection to the Nebuchadnezzar story and the Mordechai story.
So, but is this talking about that story, or is it talking about the Tehillim on Haman's? When it says Tehillim, am I connecting wrong the Nebuchadnezzar statue, or?
What you're connecting is right and wrong. This Gemara is talking about the statue around Haman, it appears, because the Jewish people weren't destroyed in the times of Nebuchadnezzar. Well, this is a Nebuchadnezzar story, because they're eating at the table of, they're eating at the Achashverosh's table.
It's talking about both at the same time?
It's a very good question.
Are you saying both together caused the destruction?
I don't know. It could be I'm connecting two different things.
No, there's a parallel between the two stories. There's no question about it. Let's get back to you on that. It could be because that would make, because I'll tell you why. If it's a Nebuchadnezzar story, that makes a lot. Then, if it's a Nebuchadnezzar story, maybe I misinterpreted the Gemara. I assumed it was talking about Haman, and maybe it's different to Nebuchadnezzar. In which case, if it's Nebuchadnezzar, they bowed down to Nebuchadnezzar, which they, didn't really mean to, but they shouldn't have done it anyways. It appears. But it's still not going to answer the question why Mordechai doesn't bow. Right? It doesn't answer why does Mordechai bow. So, anyways. Okay, says the Tosfot says in source number 10, I'm going to get to the point because we got to pick up the pace a little bit. The Tosfot says, you know what? When it comes to Avodah Zarah, you're allowed to be extra from. So, meaning that when it comes to bowing down to somebody, if you want to say, I don't want to bow down to that person, you're allowed to do it. It's pretty crazy. Now, what about if it's going to endanger someone or endanger your own life? That's a good question. We don't know.
But I thought we said that he didn't, like Haman didn't know that Mordechai was Jewish, so why would Mordechai say that?
So the question is, if Mordechai would have stopped, here's something which we don't know. If Mordechai would have said, oh my goodness, I just need Jewish people, fine, I'm going to start bowing now. Would Haman would have changed his mind?
No, he already had his excuse.
So that's it. So if you want to say that the moment Haman made that association, and Mordechai would have said, okay, fine, I'll bow, would that make a difference at all?
But you can't keep doing it at that point, even if it may not make a difference. You're not
So that's really why I would like to argue that it appears that what's really happening here is that Mordechai needs to take a type of stand. And what I think is really going on here is that he's taking a stand not necessarily against idolatry or from like an idol perspective, but to some extent he's standing up and he's saying, we cannot have people going around thinking that they're God. It's like Avodah Zarah, but to some extent, and this is I think what maybe some of you were referring to a little bit earlier, we're talking about a generation of time where Jews weren't even overly Jewish. Even Mordechai wasn't clear that people identified him as a Jew. So it's almost as if he felt, listen, I got to take a stand against some type of against people who see themselves as gods. And I'm willing to take a stand and I'm willing to put my life on the line for it. Because no one else is willing to take a stand against this Haman guy. This Haman guy is dangerous. He's evil. He sees himself as a king, as a god. I need to take a personal stand against it. Someone has to stand up, and I'm willing to do it. Why? Because what happens when you have someone who sees himself as he's rising up to power, like a Hitler? So Hitler should have been stopped a lot earlier. But people just were scared of these people, so they let them go. But if they can be stopped, so Mordechai feels, this is what I want to argue, Mordechai feels that for religious, political, social reasons, he needs to be the one to say, I'm willing to sacrifice myself. I know that I'm going to get myself into trouble. I could potentially be dangerous. He never thought for a minute he would endanger the Jewish people. And then I want to say that, you know what? The moment the association was made, it was just too late. Because then if he gives in, that to some extent the Jewish people are giving in. And then maybe you're giving to idolatrous reasons. Even without an Avodah Zarah symbol. Because take a look at what Haman does. Haman says, again, everyone else in Tanakh, when they're allowed to bow, they're not bowing because they see themselves as like a god and all powerful. It's much more about humility and respect and kavod. Whereas by Haman, and we see the way Haman behaves and his ego. Right? He's so... most people, if you're the number 2 guy, right? What is it? V'cholze eino shaveli, tells his wife. Right? He says, the moment I see Mordechai not bowing to me, he talks about his rov banav, he talks about his money, his wife, his kids, his power. And he says, all that means nothing to me, because there's one command. There's one thing that bothers me that he's not doing. And what is it? This guy's not bowing down to me. Right? Next week, when we're going to reevaluate this narrative just as an episode in of itself, because It's not. It's part 2, but not really part 2. We're going to see how important when you have a command, when you have one command, right? There's one command. You know, I'll give you a clue already for next week, right? Tell me another case in the Torah where you can do whatever you want except for one small thing. Very good. There's going to be a lot of parallels between the Adam and Chava story and the Megillah. That's next week's topic. Okay? Think about it. Haman has everything except for this one guy. The Adam and Chava have everything. They can eat from any tree in the garden except for one fruit. Right? A lot of parallels between the two, but not for now. So I think that is to some extent what Mordechai is doing. And I'll show it to you in a minute. If it's a time of an evil decree, so actually my son's in grade 9 now at Darche, so he's learning the Gemara, and they just learned the Gemara that says that if there's a decree against the Jews, and the non-Jews force Jews to change their shoelaces, Yareg val Yavor, you're not allowed to change your shoelaces, you have to die.
Whose shoelaces? Theirs or yours?
If the non-Jews say that all Jews have to change their shoelaces to red, and it's the time of an evil decree, you're not allowed to listen, you have to be beheaded.
Isn't that like, let's say, like the whole yellow star in the Holocaust? Like all Jews have to wear a yellow star.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about.
So it's an excellent question. I discussed it with my son. What exactly the parameters of the switching the shoelaces? The question is why they actually switch the shoelaces. Are they doing it because they want to humiliate you? Is it because that's what the Jews all wear black and they want you to become a non-Jew, therefore making red? So you're right, it's not so simple. The question is why are they choosing that red shoelace for? Are they doing it because all priests do it? Are they trying to make you diminutive? Are they trying to make you? Is it a religious statement? Is it a political statement? So it's not so simple exactly what the reasons behind it are. But when I'm trying to, there are certain times that we think there's only 3 things that Yareg val Yavor. It's not true. There are many things that Yareg val Yavor. Right? If someone says to you in public, eat this pork sandwich in front of a lecture hall filled with hundreds of people, hundreds of Jews, you're not allowed to eat a pork sandwich publicly. Right? So privately, you're allowed to eat a pork sandwich if you're going to get killed. Right? But publicly, in front of, God forbid, a guy walks into the rabbi of the shul and says, Rabbi, in front of your entire congregation, why you eat a pork sandwich or else I'll, whatever. But for Hasa, you have no choice. Take the bullet. Right? So, I think when it comes here to this Mordechai situation, he sees himself as he sees the writing on the wall. He sees this guy needs to be stopped. Someone needs to take a stand against him. Right? Just like no one took a stand against Hitler and they just let him grow, right? Take over this country and that political party, and eventually look what happened to him. Mordechai says someone needs, again, Mordechai wasn't in that type of position from a military perspective, but he felt that he needed to take a stand, right? And it's more than just from a religious perspective. It's almost like a national religious perspective here.
Is it political?
It's somewhat political, because at the end of the day, Haman was very politically motivated. But Haman is more than just political, right? Haman, at best, it's like saying, is Hitler just political? Yes, Hitler's political. It's in the context of government and politics, but it's much more. If you just explain Hitler from a political sense, you're missing what it's ideal. Hitler was about an ideology, right? That much more than just a political agenda. Right? Hitler was interested in something much greater than politics. I think Haman is the exact same way, and it was Mordechai who identified it. What was that?
Like what he stood for.
Like what he stood for. Right. Okay. I want to show you one more thing, and I think it'll help solidify what I wanted to argue. If you take a look, for example, in source 20. So, People said to him, "Why are you going against the command of the king?" Rabbi Levi Amar lahem Mordechai, Moshe Rabbeinu is here learning about Torah. Arur ha'ish asher yaseh peso masecha. V'rasha zeh oseh atzmo avodat kochavim. So that this is what it means when the Midrash says that he wore an idol around his neck. I think Chazal meant that much more than literally, right? What I mean is, Haman saw himself as an idol. He didn't need to wear it around his neck. He saw himself as this demigod. He saw himself as this power. And I think that really ultimately is what's going on. Now, we also know that Mordechai comes from a Shevet Binyamin. Binyamin does not bow. We see in many cases Binyamin is the person who often stands up for Avodah Zarah. Binyamin was what the Midrash says he didn't bow to Esav. Binyamin has this tradition of also standing up for what is right. Right? And take a look at the end of this Midrash, which is very important, because Greenberg is going to also argue there's another major theme in the Megillah. You know what this theme in the Megillah is? The whole Yosef, what happened to Mechirat Yosef and the brothers? Who represents the brothers? That's Shevet Yehuda. Ish Yudei Avshana Bira, right? So it's very strange that the Megillah calls him a Yehudi, even though he's from Shevet Binyamin, right? So that whole battle of Mechirat Yosef is also coming to life here as well, right? Of trying to rectify what happened way back in time. And Binyamin stands for, he represents what is right. Take a look at the end of this Midrash in source 20. The bottom of the line. Bottom line there in source 20, we'll just jump to the end. Meaning, Binyamin was the only brother not born when it came to bowing to... So he was born. He just didn't bow to Haman. He didn't bow to Esav. Because Binyamin, Mordechai, his Shevet, represents not bowing into a power. What's the Midrash saying? That what was type of personality was Esav? Esav also saw himself as much more than just a guy. Esav also saw himself as almost like a demigod, right? Which is why Chazal were critical maybe of why Yaakov was bowing down to him. If Yaakov was bowing down to him just to show respect for his older brother, that's one thing. But if an Esav sees himself as something more than just an older brother or as a noble person, but sees himself as almost a demigod, then there's also something problematic. So that's what we don't see Chazal being critical of Avraham from bowing down to Bnei Chet, because we don't see anywhere that Bnei Chet sees themselves as anything more than just Joe Schmo, right? We don't see that Chazal are critical of the brothers right down to Yosef, and they think because they think that's just a sign of respect. But when a person sees himself as more than just a second in command or a king, that's where it's very problematic to show them a sense of, shall we say, to bow to them. You're feeding into their ego, you're feeding into their power, you're feeding into their lust, you're feeding into their vision, you're feeding into their evil, and I think that's what's happening here. Because Purim also really stands for how is the Jew able to survive outside of the land of Israel. Purim really is often that paradigm of Jewish survival elsewhere. And it's also, you're dealing with politics. You know, we live today in a wonderful country which is led by a tremendous, righteous prime minister. I don't think anyone would argue with that. Well, maybe people like York would argue with that. But, right? No one here is going to, right? Most professors might hate him, right? But we know what type of person our prime minister is, right? But the moment even a prime minister or a government official would see themselves as more than just a government official, that's very problematic, right? So how does the Jew survive outside of Israel, in the diaspora, in Galut? So it's also knowing your position. You have to know, you got to also bow down sometimes to the non-Jewish king. You got to just show respect. You need to show dignity, right? You need to suck up. You need to play the political game. And that's permissible. That is permissible. It's thoughtful. It's a smart thing and right thing to do. But there are limits. The moment they see themselves as more than just a prime minister, a king, a government official, but more like then already you're talking about, well, then that's where the red line is, right? And it appears that really is something that I think Mordechai intuitively really sensed that this Haman was going down the wrong direction. Halavai, if people would have said the same thing by Hitler, many years before he got to what he accomplished, who knows, would have lived in a very different type of world. And taking a stand, and I think that is the danger of the world that we live in. Self-ego and power and thinking of yourself as much more than you really are is probably one of the greatest challenges today that we live in. It's something we have to be very, very careful and sensitive about, and making sure, even our personal lives, although I don't think anyone here is going to be a queen, although you never know, right? Or a prime minister, or whatever it is, right? You just have to, it's also about personal ego and personal respect. Don't give me too much. You have to recognize one's position in the sense of take your authority seriously, but at the same time, also realize that you're just a person, you're human beings, you're out to help others, and not, shall we say, be too, focused on what you deserve to receive in terms of honor and respect, taken to a much more practical, daily, conceptual basis. Okay, thank you, everybody. Next week, I'm going to try and bring some food. As a pre-Purim something or other. Okay, everybody, this is very, very exciting. It's always exciting to talk about Purim. Megillat Esther, I love talking about the Megillah because everyone has a very strong working knowledge of the Megillah because we hear it twice a year. And it's often studied. Schools like to study it because there's so much to talk about because nothing makes sense. Like nothing. Like everything that should happen doesn't happen, things that don't happen. Except for the good guys win, but kind of. You know what I mean? It's kind of good at the end, it's like a strange situation. But I want to take a different angle and just highlight a certain theme that I have been studying the past few weeks in the Megillah. And it's going to start with perhaps something that we're familiar with. The Gemara asks a question. The Gemara asks, from where do we know that Haman is found in the Torah? The Gemara asks this by the other characters of the Megillah, by Mordechai, by Esther, right? You might be familiar with Esther mina Torah minayin. Anyone know what the Gemara says? Right? Esther panai b'yamahu, right? Mordechai mina Torah minayin. Haman min haTorah minayin. Where do we see? Remember, Chazal wanted to demonstrate that the Megillah is not just ksuvim, but it's also embedded in the Torah, and the real McCoy, so to speak. Right? So Haman min haTorah minayin. Anyone know? What does the Gemara say? Yes.
Are you asking where it is?
No, meaning the Gemara asks, and the Gemara says, where do we see a reference to Haman in the Torah?
I do.
Where?
And with the tree.
Very good. And those people who are really smart just read source number 1. Right? What does source number 1 say? Hamin ha'etz. So the Gemara asks, where's Hamin ha'etz? So what's the context? That's source number 2. What is it? Vayitzmach Hashem Lokim min Adam kol eitz nechmal l'marav told Machav eitz ha'chaim b'soch hagan ve'etz hadas tovara vayikach Hashem Lokim es Adam v'yinnacheu v'gan Eden lovdo l'shem rav v'yitzav Hashem Lokim Adam lemor mikol eitz hagan ochot techa. By the way, I like asking people, how many commandments did God give Adam and Gan Eden?
1.
Wrong. Don't be Christian. 2. What's the first one?
Oh, you should eat from
No.
them?
Right here. What's the first commandment? Read it. Vayitzav Hashem Lokim. What does it say? Eat from all the trees. What's the second commandment? Don't eat. Don't be Christian. Don't just say he said no. God also says yes, right? Hashem says eat. There's 1,000 trees. I want you to eat from 999 trees. The apples, the oranges, the figs, the pomegranate. Eat from those trees. 1 tree, don't eat from. It's very important, but hashkafically, sometimes in Judaism we focus too much on the nose. The Chumash is saying no. Focus on yes. That's the first commandment, right? Okay. Second commandment is Eitz hadas tover alos chal mimenu kiviyom chal mimenu mos tamus. And the tree of Eitz hadas do not eat from. And what is this tree? Hamin ha'etz. What is this tree? That takes place in source number 3. We're going to jump to it at the end there. It's bolded. It's Yud Aleph. Vayomer mihi gilacha ki armata. Who told you? How did you know that you were naked? Hamin ha'etz asher shvisicha levotiach mimenu achalta. Did you eat from that piece of tree they weren't supposed to? We see that there's something connected right away between Gan Eden and Megillat Esther. And what I want to do is I want to uncover and try to appreciate what happened in Gan Eden. See, this year I felt bad. This year we didn't talk about Gan Eden at all. You know why?
It was Shabbos.
Because it was Shabbos, right? So it was Thursday, Friday. It was Shmiyat Tzeres Torah Shabbos. So on Chol Hamoed here, on the Monday, I think I'd probably give a shiur on Sukkah stuff, right? So we lost Bereshis. So I'm very excited. I can now return back to Bereshis, to Gan Eden. It's my favorite. If you understand Gan Eden, the whole Chumash is all about Gan Eden. No question about it. Every theme that plays throughout Chumash all has a connection, in my not so humble opinion, to Gan Eden. So for another time. Now, what is this connection? What is this connection? So I want to ask you something. What happened in Gan Eden? What went wrong? What went wrong? So it's very simple. Adam was told to do something, and he was told not to do something. And unfortunately, what he was told not to do, he did. Now, what's wrong with eating from something you're not supposed to? Like, I don't understand. God, you're God, right? Hi, I'm God, right? So why are you making a tree off limits for? Right? Like, are you just there to, like, entice him? To set him up? And what's the difference between life before Gan Eden and after Gan Eden? These are difficult questions. It's going to be very important in a minute. And also, what's a tree of, like, Tov V'Ra, like good? What does it mean? Right? It's identified in the Chumash as V'Tov L'Machal Kol Ifritz Mach Hashem. Oh, Me'etz Hadas Tov V'Ra. What is good? Good, bad, evil? Especially because it's coming in the same context as that first pasuk that Hashem creates lots of trees. So this the 999 trees were tov l'machal, and there's one tree was eitz hada'as tov v'ra. I don't understand. Is it the same thing? What's the difference between the eitz hada'as that's tov v'ra that they're not allowed to eat from, and these other trees that are tov l'machal? What's the difference between them? Good questions, no?
There's also raw.
What?
There's also raw.
Ah, good. So I don't. How? What? Trees both tov and ra. Evil. Oh, this is an evil tree. How could the tree be evil? How could you have an evil tree? What did it do? It like doesn't live with his mom. Oh, you bad tree! Right? Go to your room. What does it mean? It was an evil tree. Anyone want to propose something? Anyone want to help us? Yes.
So it's not about like the tree's fruit, but like the knowledge that the tree gave a person was the subjective knowledge of good and evil. Like I don't remember who said it, but before pre-Chet, it was emes and sheker, right? There was no such thing as good and bad, which are subjective things. Like, oh, I think this is good, I think that's good, I think this strike is good, well, I think this strike is bad, right? And it's all a personal idea.
Okay.
Whereas it was either truth or falsehood. And the Yetzer Hara lived external to a person, whereas post-Chet, it was internal. It wasn't the Nachash, it was Yetzer Hara was inside someone.
Okay. So like, it's very much the
that's why I've always been.
Yeah. Okay. I think the Rabbi actually makes reference to something like that. So does the Maharal. And how many of you have been to chocolate? I'm just picking on chocolate trams. This is easy. How many of you have been to chocolate trams before? Raise your hand. What's your favorite flavor? Ricky B. If oh, that's that's a good point. So you have to go to the second letter.
I spell my name R-I-C-K-I and she doesn't. So.
Oh, there you go. Ricky R-I-C-K-I. What's the supposed to R-I-K-K? K-K? Yeah.
I don't remember the flavors. I just like all chocolate as long as it doesn't have fruit.
Oh, as long as it's fruit. Does anyone like fruit in their chocolate? Yeah, it's just like fruit in your chocolate. Would you guys willing to like wrestle it out? You know, like I say chocolate with fruit, you say chocolate without fruit.
No fruit.
No fruit. Well, there's a great expression in Hebrew called "Atam vareach ein litvakeach." You can't argue over when it comes to taste. Why not?
It's subjective.
Very subjective. Right? When I like chocolate, I don't like chocolate. I like pretzels. I like, if I were to ask you what's your favorite pizza in Toronto, I'm sure we can get a whole difference of agreement. I like, this is the best pizza. The person who says it's the best pizza, I guarantee there's probably someone else who'd say that's like the worst pizza in Toronto, right? Not because we're Jews. But that's just the way it goes. When it comes to taste, a lot of our personal preferences and choices. I think what happens in Gan Eden, and this is very important. What's the difference if Adam can go to a garden and eat all 1,000 trees versus if he could only eat 999 of them? What's the message that maybe God wants to fundamentally teach him about this world? Nothing to do with good and evil. Before we can get to good and evil, there's a more important basic message that Adam needs to be taught.
He's not in charge.
That he's not in charge. Is that what you're going to say?
Yeah, like you don't have control over.
You're not in charge. You're not the Balabait. By the way, this idea of kashrut too, right? You're not in charge. You are a guest. You're a guest in my garden. So you're a guest in my garden. You can enjoy it. I want you to enjoy it, right? If we're a parent, one of the things that we want our children to do is we want them to enjoy what we're giving them, right? I don't think people make dinner for their kids hoping they're not going to like the food. My goal is that you don't like dinner. Yeah. My goal is that you don't like your room. My goal is that you don't like the clothes that I buy for you. I mean, that's absurd, right? We don't want that as parents, as friends, as whatever the case may be. So we want, but the greatest danger in the world today is not having appreciation for what you have. Appreciate that you are not, someone gave it to you, someone worked for it. One of the things that always bothered me about Birthright was that they advertised free trip to Israel, right? It's not a free trip, someone's paying for it. Someone's paying a lot of, the participant might not have to pay for it, but someone is paying a lot of money for it. So, nothing is free, everything costs money. But people who go around the world thinking that they are the Balabait, it's their garden, it's their world, they can do whatever they want, whenever they want, that to me is one of the most fundamental, first of all, it's the worst meat that you could possibly have. And second of all, I think that was the first message God wanted to tell Adam. I could have called this tree the tree of chocolate, the tree of figs, it doesn't matter. I need to teach you fundamentally a very important lesson. You are not the Balabait, you're not in charge. I'm God, I'm in charge. I created the world. Therefore I own the world, and you cannot take whatever, whenever. One tree, you have 999 trees, you're going to be okay, right? You're like, I think we do quite fine eating kosher food. You know what I mean? I don't see myself starving, right? I pay sometimes a bit more money, I might have to go to the next aisle over at the supermarket, but we're not really suffering. Baruch Hashem. Now, what is this whole Tovara? So I think this is what Ricky was saying. There are some times in life things that are truly evil. And there are some things that are good. And then there's times where there's very hazy. And it depends. And it can get complicated. And it's not so black and white. And sometimes we confuse the word good with good. What do I mean? That's exactly the purpose of the Torah. When I say that this tree is tov l'ma'achal, is that an objective tov l'ma'achal, or is that a subjective tov l'ma'achal? Meaning, if everyone, when the first pasuk, take a look at pasuk tet in source 2. Is that tov l'ma'achal? Would you agree to that, even though it's like fruity chocolate, and you might think it's like nutty chocolate? Or you think it's like tovli pizza or Maiziedes pizza? Is that the tov l'ma'achal? Is that an objective tov l'ma'achal? Is that a subjective tov l'ma'achal? What do you think it is? Subjective tov l'ma'achal. Anybody there would have enjoyed that tov l'ma'achal dimension, correct? That's exactly what it's saying. But what ends up happening is after we eat, after Adam eats, from this Eitz Hadat Tovara, the Tovara becomes sublimed into him. And then the question is, we get confused between terminologies. Is this good? Wait, is this really good? I think this is good. But is it really good? I think this is bad. But is it really bad? It's not objective. It's often subjective. Now, it might not be as silly as taste, but it could also be action. With that introduction, I believe we're going to be prepared to study Megillat Esther. Because this is going to be a battle over what is good and what is ra. What is tov and what is ra. And there's different battles that are taking place on different fronts. And you're going to see something very, very interesting. There's one more thing that I wanted to do. What did I flip? No. Okay. Let's begin reading. Let's take a look first at source number 4. Let's take our classic example that's so obvious it jumps off the piece of paper, and then we'll get to ones that are more, shall we say, complicated. Take a look at source number 4. Vayetze Haman bayamahu samech v'tov lev. Ladies and gentlemen, why is Haman in Perek Hey and Pasuk Tes? Why is he samech v'tov lev? What just happened? He just got more than promoted. He just got invited to Esther's party. Now we have to make a distinction here because there's 2 types of parties that we see in the Megillah. If you've heard me do this joke before, I apologize. There's one type of party that has hundreds and hundreds of people, maybe even thousands of people. It's like, ooh, 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 right? There's like lights going off and on, people dancing. That's the parties in the beginning of the Megillah, right? And those are the parties at the end with the Jewish people. Maybe they have the Hasidic music or something. I don't know. They had whatever music they had. What's that guy? The guy that nobody likes, but people like Lipa, right? There you go. No one likes, but everyone likes him. It's like that. Okay, right? So whatever, it doesn't matter. Not a bad joke. So there's another type of party. And what is this type of party? I call this white gloves. What do I mean? It's also a mishteh. And what type of mishteh? This is with Haman, Achashverosh, and Esther. Just the 3 of them. This will be, we'll talk a little bit about this on Wednesday. Maybe we'll talk about it at York if there's no strike. There also won't be Fruits and Fast Day. And that is the party that Haman was invited to. So he is Sameach v'tov lev because he just got invited, not to a party with hundreds of people, with thousands of people. He got invited to a white glove, steak, lit candles type of dinner. I made all that up, but that's the image in my mind, right? They're not serving like bagels like I did, that's for sure. Okay? So, he's happy. Sameach v'tov lev. Now, v'tov lev, ladies and gentlemen. Why is he happy here? Because you're just... I don't know. If you're invited to the king's dinner, wouldn't that also... is that objective or subjective? I think it's objective. No? Maybe. Appears that way. Okay? If you're the king, right? You're invited to the king, so that's pretty good. We'll see what happens. However... V'chirot Haman es Mordechai b'shar melech. V'lo kam, v'lo zamimenu. V'yimaleh Haman al Mordechai chema. Why is Haman? I just thought he was Sameach v'tov lev. Then what happens? What happens after he's Sameach v'tov lev? What? Sorry? He sees Mordechai. And what happens to him? He gets so upset. Just grab a chair. He gets so upset. Now, question. The fact that he gets so upset, why does he get so upset? Does he have a reason to be so upset? What? His ego, no. Does he have a reason to be so upset? The guy was invited to the king's, what's it called? The king's dinner. He's number 2 guy in the land. Why are you so upset for? Because one first Dungan guy is not bowing down to you. You're malech chema. You're so angry over one guy not bowing to you. You're the number 2 guy. You have almost all the power in the world, and you're so angry. Let's continue. This is what he does. This is wild. He calls his wife. And he calls his ohavav. I guess he has people that like him, right? He has like his friends, his chevra. They're all sitting around. And what does he do? He tells his wife and the people that like him, you know what he tells them? I have great power. I have money. Kavod Oshro. I have all these jewels and gems. And you guys know what the king promoted me? He made me higher than everybody else. Look at me. I'm the only guy. I'm with the king. I'm with the queen. Look at what I have. Do you guys know? Do you realize who you're talking to? Do you realize you're in the presence of greatness? That's me. That's me. That's what he's saying to them. But then look what he says in Yud Gimel. V'cho ze nenu shaveli b'chol et asher nireh es Mordechai Yehudi yoshev b'shar melech. Look at this guy. Because one guy does. How does one guy not bowing to him affect his jewels and gems? How does one guy not bowing to him affect the fact that he's called to speak to be with the king and queen tomorrow? It doesn't. Look what this one thing does to him. It makes him crazy. Look at the next line. Vatomer lo zeresh ishto v'chovav yasu etz gavoa chamashim v'boker mo lamelch v'tzuz morcha alav v'voy memelch al mishteh sameach v'yitav hadavar lifnei Haman v'yasa etz. Interesting. How is this gallows identified in the Torah and the Megillah? As an eitz, as a tree. Ring a bell? What is the response by making this eitz? Sameach and vayitav hadavar. He now becomes tov. He's happy. Once again, it smells like Gan Eden, doesn't it? Eitz and tov. The one thing, hear what's happening? Is this now objective or subjective? This clearly is. I don't understand. You're so happy the fact that you're going to. This is not something which should really make you happy. This is about killing somebody, murdering somebody. This is about you have all the power, you have everything you want, and you can't be happy. You can't be tov. You want, so to speak, the forbidden fruit. You want it all. You want to eat from Eitz Hadas. To some extent, that's exactly what it is saying. Now, I'm just going to jump. I got to move a little bit faster because it's getting a little late. So, turn the page. And we're going to skip the conversation in the middle of the night where you can't sleep. By the way, I'll just show you another reference to Eitz Hadas. Where does when the king can't sleep, where does he go? When it's identified to Achashverosh, who's the person that wants to wipe out Mordechai, Jewish people, Esther's people, where does he go to? He goes to the garden, doesn't he? Gan Eden. That's a similar word, isn't it? And then what does he do? Look at Pasuk Tes. So it's source 6, Pasuk Tes. So it's Perek Zayin Tes. 7-9. And by the way, again, what does Mordechai do to the king? He's midaber tov. He speaks good about the king. He tried to save his life. Again, this is about the good. This is about the tree. Once more. Now, there only are 2 places in the entire Torah where a certain verb is used. One is in source 8, which is bolded, where Yishma es kol Hashem Elokim mishalech bagan. God's voice is traveling in of itself, right? And the only time that verb is used, by the way, is, if you take a look at the next page, I always look at both the words, it gives it away, in Yud Aleph. Every single day, what does Mordechai do? Mordechai is mishalech lifnei chatzer. Mordechai also is this walking in the chatzer to find out what's going on with Esther. Only 2 places. Once again, we see our Gan Eden connection to our Megillah. There's one point that I threw out there that I'm not really going to have that much time to develop, just because we don't have the time, but I'll give you guys homework. There's also a command. One thing that Esther is forbidden to do. What's she forbidden to do? Mordechai tells her, don't do this. What is it? She can't reveal her identity. That's almost like the forbidden fruit, right? Don't reveal your identity. A command. Don't do that. All right, that's for, I'll throw it out there. You can figure it out yourself. Now, and by the way, it's also very similar. There's like a beauty pageant. There's a selection. Esther's chosen, right? What happens at the whole Gan Eden story? She's placed. Also, man is in the garden. What happens? All of a sudden, choose a mate, right? Lo tov yosadam levado. Not good being alone. It's also not good for Achashverosh to be alone. That's why he needs to find a wife. He uses the exact same words both in the Megillah and in the Chumash as well. But that's for another time. And also, take a look at the name calling in Yud Dalet. If you take a look on page 3. Ki im chafetz b'hamelch v'nikra v'shem. What does Adam do in Gan Eden? He names all the animals. Right? Okay. Turn the page. What I want to do is I want to get to the punchline. If Vashti would have been a good Vashti, I didn't mean to say Vashti. If Zeresh would have been a good wife, what should she have told her husband? In the end, she gave her husband advice. You know what? Go get a tree. That guy's bothering you? Hang him on that tree. He's like, great idea. If she would have been a good wife, good from a good perspective, what should she have told her husband?
Everything in the relax.
Doesn't matter. What?
You can't tell someone that when they're really, really upset.
Focus on the good. Make him a coffee.
Let's write down all the people that love.
Let's all. Who that like? Make a list. Who likes you? Very good. I like that. Right? Who likes you? Right? Let's look at the positives and negatives. Get over it. One guy's annoying you. Let it go. It doesn't matter. Right? Very good. I like that. That's a good one. I'm going to use that line. Right? Make so many. Look how many. By the way, Haman is saying this. Look, Chol Ohavav. He has an entourage. He has people that like his Facebook page. Right? He has people that like him. So if that's the case, it shouldn't matter. But instead, what does she do? She says, all right, yeah, she stirs the pot. Get rid of Mordechai. She's not a very good wife. She's actually a very evil wife. Now take a look at the other husband and wife scenario. And that's going to be Esther and Achashverosh. And look what happens in that Tov and Ra situation. Okay. 11. Let's jump to 11. Let's jump to 12. Vatan Esther Malka v'Tormi Mesazachim Beinecha Melach. V'Mal Melach Tov. Tinasen li Sheilasi Nafshi b'Sheilasi v'Ami v'Agashasi. Now, Mesazachim Beinecha Melach Tov. What type of Tov is that? Probably in that context.
Subjective.
So at this point in time, it appears like, Imal Mel Tov. If you're like, you find me pretty, you find me to be your wife, right? Not necessarily objective. Good. Here's the problem. This is very strange, right? Esther says, if we would have just been sold to slavery, I wouldn't have said anything. Since we're going to be killed, I got to speak up. That's another time. Look at Vav. Tomer Esther. Because Achashverosh asks, Ish tsar voyev haman hara hazeh. How does Esther identify Haman as objective evil? This Ra is not subjective in Esther's eyes. Esther wants to convince her husband that this is Ra. Haman is the embodiment of true objective evil. And look at Zion at the end. Ki chalta elav hara'a mi'es hamelach. So again, we see what Esther tries to do. Esther is trying to paint Haman as objective as evil. Haman's desires. You know how Haman had these desires of, he thought he knew what Tov and Ra really was? Right? And he thinks he's happy, but what really makes him happy is if he gets rid of Mordechai. Right? And he thinks that's what make him even happier. Often we think that we need something, we want something that's going to make us also happier. That's what Adam thought. Adam thought that, yes, it was Tov L'Machal, so if the fruit in Gan Eden is Tov L'Machal, why not have all the fruit, which is Tov L'Machal? That's how it begins to be identified when the woman comes close to the tree in the beginning of Perek Gimel and Bereshis. And then finally, in number 12, the second time Esther approaches her husband, Vatomer Imala Melech Tov. By the way, this is the only example that I know of that the word kosher actually is in Chumash, in Tanakh. V'chasher hadavar. It's kosher. Right? Again, this is neat. So the time I think kosher. I guess this is where it comes from. I don't know. Right? V'kosher hadavar lifnei melech. This tov is not just the tov from before. This is the correct, right thing to do. V'tovani be'inav. Again, she's pushing him. I am good in your eyes, not just because I'm pretty, not just I'm your wife, but this is good. I'm good in your eyes. Right? Talk about the Jews. Because after all, in Pasuk Vav, I'm sure you mitzat me. Look at the evil, objective evil that's fallen, my people. Ladies and gentlemen, we have two scenarios. We have a husband and wife scenario. In one scenario, the wife had an opportunity, and instead, she digs this pit. And here, Here's an opportunity where the wife convinces the husband to do the proper, moral, right thing. When we talk about husband and wife relationships, it's an Ezer Kenegdo. Chazal tell us what's an Ezer Kenegdo. An Ezer is to la'azor, Kenegdo is to oppose. Aren't those things isn't that a contradiction? When we talk about a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a good friend, a spouse, if you're that person and all you're doing is convincing the other person of what's good for them, if you're trying to feed into their ego, help them with their demise, that's not being a very good friend. Sometimes people think, oh, this is my good friend. He lets me be who I really want to be. Well, that's not necessarily good, is it? If there are certain friends that we have that sometimes when they oppose you, it's actually better. It's actually better sometimes to oppose somebody, not always let them do what they want to do. Sometimes it's good to say no to them. For sure, it works also with children and parents. If you're always saying yes to them, it's not being a good parent, it's being a terrible parent. It's not being a good friend, nor is it being a good spouse. Sometimes you could be la'azor by being neged. Sometimes you can be helping them by actually opposing them. And that is what the two contrasts are quite great. We have the Haman and Zeresh, who Zeresh brings down, feeds into Haman's ego. This is what you need. This is what's going to be good for you, even though it's really evil. And the opposite is true when it comes to Esther and when it comes to Achashverosh, where Esther tries to convince Achashverosh very carefully, very witty, Achashverosh, you got to do the right thing. Not the right because it's good for your power, not the right because it's good financially, not the right. It's the morally tov thing to do. To destroy the evil, the immoral Ra. And this, I think, clearly connects us back to Gan Eden. The whole Gan Eden narrative that we started with, where is Haman found in the Torah? Chazal clearly sees this relationship between what really is good and what really is evil. And maybe even one could even say that to some extent, the purpose of the Ezer Kenegdo, because the Isha, back in Gan Eden, right, he didn't oppose her. He didn't say no to her. She did what she needed to do. There was no opposition. She gave it to him. He took it. He accepted it. Right? You need to sometimes be able to oppose a person and when to say no, when to say yes. And that perhaps teaches us the fundamental lesson of Purim. When we talk about, right, what are we supposed to drink until we don't know the difference between Baruch, Mordechai, and Aaron Haman, right? So again, this whole concept of mixing up what is good and what is evil, I think is part of what Purim comes to tell us. Purim comes to teach us. Sometimes when you nichnas yayin, when you drink a little bit, the truth comes out. To some extent, Purim and Megillat is there. The purpose is to reveal what really is evil, what is covered up, what's a facade, what's fake. I think I want this. Do you really want that? What really is good for me? Is that really good for you? What is really tov and what is really ra? I think that is one of the sub-themes and a major important theme in the entire Megillah and surrounds the entire holiday of Purim as well. So hopefully with a little bit more of appreciation, we can read the Megillah with a little bit more clear glasses and understanding, and hopefully we can bring that into our lives. We're trying to appreciate what really is good for us and really isn't good for us in our own lives. And with that, we can have the baracha of goodness, of true goodness. Tov l'adot l'Hashem, ulzamer l'shimcha yon. Have a wonderful day. Purim Sameach, everybody.